When I was very little, I began to see and hear spirits in my mother's house. My parents thought it was just an overactive imagination at first. Then I started to see angels and demons when we were out, and I started to describe them in detail. I didn't mind the angels talking to me, or the Catholic saints, but I really didn't like the demonic spirits. My grandparents were Catholic, but they never discussed religion or the devil with me. However, I used to see the saints literally walking around in their house. I told them about it and think at first they thought I was just making up stories or something like that. Then I began to actually have conversations with the saints and ghosts frequently. My dad just said that some people might not understand my abilities and not to mention it to other people. However, my mom got mad at me for it and started punishing me for talking about the spirits and angels that I was seeing and hearing. I do have to add that my mom has a Ouija board that she kept secretly from my dad. Every time she would play with the Ouija board, paranormal stuff would happen, and she would always say, "April, stop it. Quit talking about that ghost bullshit. There's no such things as ghosts and spirits. Now you know that it was the wind that opened up the door." I remember standing in the kitchen watching the doorknob turn by itself, and the door opening up. She then told me to shut the door, so I did. I discovered other abilities that I had too, like being able to close my eyes and focus on an object and use my hands to find it, kind of like a divining rod of some sorts. Always, I would feel the object's energy and locate it. I used to help my dad find his tools that were lost in the basement. He had a workroom in the basement when I was little. Sometimes some of the tools would get misplaced in the room. He thought the ability was cool, so he never got mad at me for it. I began to have premonitions when I was very young, mostly through dreams, like the time I dreamed about a house that was on fire, and people were being taken out of the house on journeys by paramedics. I woke up scared. My mom and dad told me that it was just a bad dream. The next week, we were out driving around, and my dad turned down a street, and there was the house on fire with the paramedics, taking people out on the house as it was burning down. I had other experiences with precognition in dreams, but that was the worst one. I started to be able to see things from the past that happened with no way of knowing it. Like when we used to go to car lots and I know if someone had died in a car accident in one of the cars, I would actually see the accident inside my mind. I always told my parents that I didn't like being around those cars because somebody died in some of them. My dad was accepting to it and would say, "Okay, then we go over to that one." My mom, on the other hand, would get mad and say, "April, nobody died in those cars, you're imagining things again." So I quit talking about it to her. Some of the ghosts would actually walk over to me and tell me who they were and how they died in the cars. I got in trouble for talking to myself, that's what my mom always called it, and I would get yelled at and punished by her for it. I soon started to be able to conjure up stuff and at will. No one taught me to. I just discovered the ability by accident. My dad did scold me for it, so I didn't do it around anyone else afterwards. I always had visits from spirits in my childhood. The African deities, the Egyptian deities, the Roman deities, and a lot of other ones. One night it was thundering outside, and I was laying in bed, and like most kids, I was scared of the thunder and lightning. So as I was laying down praying about the thunderstorm, the god Shango, he's a Santarian god of thunder and lightning, appeared to me and told me that he was the god of thunderstorms, and when he would not let the lightning harm me. He was a tall, dark-skinned, handsome man with a crown on his head, and it had cowrie shells on it. He said that he was once an African king a long time ago, and that God had made him an Orisha. He also said a few words in the Yoruba language, smiled, and then left. After that, I wasn't afraid of thunderstorms anymore. I actually grew to love thunderstorms after that. I used to yell, "Hi, Shango," whenever it would thunder outside. I drew pictures of him all the time as a young girl. My dad didn't mind it. He had always a very laid-back attitude about everything that was happening to me. My mom, on the other hand, would go apeshit over it, so I didn't talk about it to her. She was a prejudiced woman and got mad at me for drawing black people. I kept telling her that it was my friends from Africa. I eventually began to hide the drawings from her because I was tired of being hollered at and spanked for drawing African gods. I kept my mouth shut about the spirits and stuff at school. I had learning disabilities and was horribly abused by the kids at school, and the teachers were always mad at me because I had such a hard time learning things. They made fun of me too. So I went through hell as a kid. My kindergarten teacher used to yell at me and hit my hands for writing my numbers and letters backwards. I now know that I'm dyslexic. That's why I had so much trouble learning things. My dad passed away from cancer when I was 10 years old. He lived in a hospital for the last month of his life. I saw him in a dream the night he died. He said goodbye to me. I woke up an hour later. The hospital called my mom and said that he had died. I already knew, though. The haunting at her house got really bad after that. Cupboard doors would open up by themselves. Appliances would turn on and off by themselves. I probably shouldn't have said anything to her about the hauntings in her house, but I couldn't take it anymore. I always told her that it was because of her damn Ouija board that the house was the way it was. However, she got mad and said that she had the Ouija board ever since she was a teenager and nobody was going to make her get rid of it. I remember her screaming at me at that moment. It's just a damn game, April. And I don't want to hear about that Ouija board shit anymore. You're a sick girl, April. You got crazy thoughts. You have hallucinations. You're seeing things that aren't real. Well, one day, she hospitalized me in the psych hospital. She told them that I heard voices and saw things that weren't real. I tried to convince the doctors and nurses that her house was haunted by demonic spirits, but they did not believe me. When I got released from the hospital, I had to go back to her house to live. I left home not too much later. After something scratched me and tried to strangle me, I decided enough was enough and left home. I haven't been back there since. I embrace my abilities as a part of who I am. I use my abilities to help others who are having problems with hauntings. My belief is that most of the time, children who have imaginary friends are psychic children who are communicating with ghosts, angels, or whatever. I now do psychic readings and haunting investigations. I also do spiritual baths and oils for people as well. I do practice Wicca and Santeria. I work with God and the powers of good. I know that a lot of people would say that there is no such things as ghosts or spirits, and that's fine by me. But I know what I experienced as a child was real. If your child is saying that they can see ghosts or angels, or have a friend that's imaginary, don't call the kid crazy or a freaking liar. Listen to your kids. Don't threaten them for talking about what they see or experience. It is their true feelings. It just makes matters worse. And I'm talking from experience, because it did for me. I wish someone would have believed me about the hauntings in my mom's house. Years later, when I was an adult, I was told by a relative that she and her husband felt negative, evil energy in my mother's house. I was also told by her that my dad told him that he had experiences in the house as well, but he didn't want to scare me and possibly anger my mother, so he never got the courage to tell either of us that he had those kinds of experiences in that house at the time. I know that he was always praying in the house while my mother was asleep, because like my mother said, that shit was just batshit crazy, right? And so was I. When he was very, very sick, the spirits messed with him all the time. I was told this by the same aunt who said that her husband and her used to feel evil spirits and evil presences sometimes in the house. I always wondered why they would stand outside in the snow for 5 minutes and just be there praying. Pray, 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 before coming inside. Now, after they told me, I finally know why. I was happy after leaving that house. I, this very day, have 2 very wonderful guides that are always with me, and in my true heart I love them very, very much. They are my best friends. They are the family I almost never had. Well, I must say good night and end this long story. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope you do believe me. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but there are things in this world that you may not understand fully. Anyways, guys, before leaving, blessed be, and ashe to you all.